South Korea has long been regarded as a major economic success story, known globally for its high-tech industries and powerful brands that produce goods sold around the world. Over the past several decades, South Korea transformed itself into a true economic powerhouse. Yet, despite the international success of its tech brands, South Korea's growth model is now showing signs of strain. The country's economic growth has gradually slowed over the years and has virtually come to a halt, with few expecting a meaningful rebound anytime soon. This raises a pressing question. Why is South Korea, with its many prominent global brands, facing an economic slowdown? And what steps can it take to reverse this trend? South Korea's path to economic prominence was once unstoppable, beginning in the 1950s with rapid development that continued into the 1980s, achieving double-digit growth rates for nearly 3 decades. Even as the pace slowed in subsequent decades, South Korea still managed impressive averages: 7% GDP growth in the 1990s, 4% in the 2000s, and 3% in the 2010s. However, over the past 5 years, growth has decelerated even further. For many, the issue isn't simply that growth has slowed. This is expected in mature economies, but that it may reflect a longer-lasting trend. Even the Bank of Korea has warned that the country could face a stagnant economy over the next decade, potentially beginning to contract by the 2040s. This has fueled widespread concerns that South Korea's growth model may have finally exhausted its potential, signaling a possible economic decline if transformative changes are not made. The paradox here is that South Korea still produces high-quality, in-demand products, from smartphones to automobiles and consumer electronics. These are items that people worldwide purchase, often owning South Korean products in their homes. To understand why South Korea is struggling, it's essential to explore the foundations of its economic model and the ways it has evolved and stagnated over the years. At the core of South Korea's economic system are the chaebols, massive, family-owned conglomerates like Samsung and Hyundai. These corporations have enjoyed privileged support from the government for generations, benefiting from tax breaks, subsidies, and regulatory advantages. This special treatment allowed them to grow rapidly, expand internationally, and capture significant market share. Yet, while government support played a critical role, it doesn't tell the whole story. South Korea's rapid rise also relied on creative imitation, where companies excelled at reverse engineering successful Western products and improving upon them, while keeping costs low. In addition to favorable tax policies, South Korea's state-owned power company, KEPCO, provided cheap energy, and a rapidly growing, highly educated workforce allowed these conglomerates to produce goods affordably and efficiently. This model enabled South Korea to progress from manufacturing basic goods to more advanced products, gradually moving from imitation to true innovation. However, such a strategy has its limits, and the conditions that once supported South Korea's growth have changed significantly. For one, KEPCO, which supplied cheap energy for decades, now faces mounting debt, and subsidized energy prices are no longer sustainable. The once abundant labor force is also shrinking as South Korea's population declines, making labor both scarce and more expensive. Furthermore, the chaebols themselves have changed. Once hungry and growth-oriented, they are now owned by third-generation family members who, according to experts like Professor Park from Seoul National University, have adopted a mindset of comfort and complacency. Where they once used government support to pursue aggressive expansion, they now rely on it as a means of shielding themselves from competition, particularly from smaller, innovative domestic firms that might otherwise. This complacency has consequences. The chaebols continue producing high-quality goods, but many of these products are just updated versions of items made decades ago, such as cars, phones, and appliances. While South Korea once led the world in several advanced technology sectors, it has failed to expand into many of the newer, high-growth areas that have emerged in recent years. In 2012, South Korea was a world leader in 36 out of 120 priority technologies identified by the government, but by 2020, this number had dropped to just 4. Compounding this challenge is China, which now competes directly with South Korea in many sectors, using a similar model of creative imitation, gradually replacing South Korea's position in industries where it once dominated. In essence, South Korea's economic model, which originated over 7 decades ago, no longer aligns with the demands of the modern global market. The government cannot continue to support the chaebols as it once did, with cheap energy and a plentiful labor force now things of the past. The chaebols themselves have become entrenched, focused more on preserving their market dominance than on innovation, often using their influence to suppress competition from smaller firms that might otherwise drive new growth. While the need for reform may seem clear, achieving it has proven challenging. South Korea's economic model was so effective for so long that moving away from it is difficult. The chaebols wield considerable influence and resist changes that would threaten their privileges. Additionally, South Korea has experienced prolonged political gridlock in recent years, making it hard for the government to enact strategic economic reforms. Without significant changes, South Korea risks losing its hard-earned place as an economic leader, facing the possibility of long-term decline if it cannot adapt. The pressing question now is whether South Korea can reinvent its economic model before it's too late.